The Foundation. This is the faction that the Scientists, Facility Guards, Nine-Tailed Fox, and Mobile Task Force are part of. In this guide, we will focus on how to escape as a scientist and further explain what I didn't in the last guide, like SCP-914, Candy Room, heavy weapons, how every SCP item works, and how you can make a difference in making your faction spawn in instead of the enemies. With that said, let's dive right into the action. So you spawn in as a scientist, and instead of appearing in CD with the class Ds, you get your own random spawn somewhere in light containment. You also start with a medkit and a scientist card. This is crucial as the medkit will help you tank more hits against SCPs, and your scientist card gives you access to the rooms DC-01 and SCP-913 straight from the beginning. DC-01 has a guaranteed zone manager card that always spawns in the same spot, and a computer that lets you open the candy room. This small adjacent room contains a bowl that holds candies. There is a lot of different candies, so here is the list of normal candies and Halloween ones, as this video was recorded during the event. Now to the second room you can open with your scientist card is 914. SCP-914 is a machine that lets you upgrade your items when putting it on fine or very fine. Let's take your scientist card for example. When you flip the setting knob to fine, your card will upgrade by one level until you get the 05 card. When putting it on very fine, you will have 33% chance for the card to stay the same, 33% chance for it to upgrade by one level, and 33% chance for it to upgrade by 2 levels. Getting an 05 is risky, as upgrading items is really long. About 10 seconds per upgrade, which creates a window for SCPs to reach the light containment and go straight into 914, as it's a very contested room and always has at least one player at the start of the game. So here is a tip that could save your life. If you are going to upgrade to 05, I recommend putting the setting to fine and have 2 cards to accelerate the process of obtaining 1. If you only have 1 card, I recommend upgrading it once on fine so you can obtain the research supervisor, which lets you open the checkpoints to go down to heavy and loot SCP items. Since there's an insane amount of possible upgrades of items with 914, I will put a link in the description to the wiki that does a really good job at showing all of them. I also count on doing a video more in depth into 914 alone and all the outputs, so consider subscribing to get notified when it eventually comes out. SCP items are one of the ways you can obtain points for your team to further their spawn instead of the enemies, and give you powerful tools to fight or flee against SCPs who are the players. First, let's talk about the SCP item that it's only used as throwing into SCP-173's waterfall with all his shit where it belongs, being none other than SCP-244. This vase is an absolute waste of an inventory slot, being only useful in the most situational scenarios. Basically creates a thick fog that applies hypothermia after entering it for too long, slowly killing you. In the perfect scenario, this vase can be thrown in front of 096's chamber or the small armory to kill an SCP after trapping it in there, and that's if they don't have an 079, which spawns 80% of the time over 096. Its only other use is to place it in a spot, for example the checkpoints, to laser any upcomer NTF or Chaos Insurgency going through the doors. Onto the SCPs that aren't complete trash yet is 1576, the Phonograph. At first glance, it seems very useful, letting you speak with the spectators that hold very good information like what the current SCPs are, how many friends or foe are left, and where they are. Until you realize that 95% of the spectators will tell you to kill yourself and jump off into 173's pile of shit at the bottom of the waterfall, saying that you're the only one left while there's still the Joe Mamonless in the facility chasing down an SCP with a micro. Totally not projection. Anyway, when you get that other 5% of the spectators that actually helps, this item can prove itself to be quite strong. Then there is 939's favorite toy, SCP-018. Are also known as the ball. When thrown, it will gradually accelerate and deal increasingly more damage and break any glass or normal doors it hits. After 80 seconds, it will explode going through a wall so it doesn't permanently render an area unavailable for the rest of the game. It can be quite deadly when used, for example, at the elevators to light containment, since you can close the heavy gates on it, or inside the elevators themselves. It can be used even when in groups, as your teammates will have a 10-second grace period where the ball won't deal damage to them. Now this is an item I personally don't use along with the vase, as I'll just end up killing myself with it by accident, but it's still quite an alright item. Next up, something that can save your life if used right is SCP-2176, the GhostLight. This absolute gem will turn off any light as well as close and lock all doors in the room it was thrown into. It also is the only counter to 079 targeting you as a solo, disabling him for 8 seconds, as well as draining his AP, which are the points letting him use his abilities, which I'll go more into details in the next guide on the play unplayable SCPs. If the doors of the room were already locked, you can use the GhostLight to re-enable them along with the lights. I almost missed this detail, but while playing I realized that you can right-click to throw it on the floor without breaking it instantly, and it would instead delay it by about like 10 seconds before it breaks, and then the effect will be in place. Now to one of the most loved SCP items by the community, the cola. Once you drink it, you gain infinite sprint at the exchange of losing health over time. It's quite easy to manage as there are medkits and pills practically everywhere. Know that if you escape or take SCP-500, you will lose the effects. Talking of SCP-500, it's the best healing source in the game. Popping one of those up will restore instantly 100 HP and grants a regen lasting 10 seconds that can heal up to 100 HP again. It also has very strong side effects like healing burnt, cardiac arrest, concussed, deafened, poisoned, and removing the effects of Anti-Cola, SCP-1853, and 127, like already mentioned. Anti-Cola is basically the contrary of Cola, giving you up to 75 AHP by making you slower by 5%. SCP-1853 is one of my favorite SCPs and best alternative to the Cola, giving you all the following effects. Keep in mind that all three of these SCPs cannot be used together. Drinking SCP-207 or Anti-Cola and then using SCP-1853 will give you the poisoned effect, leaving you with a certain death, which is also what happens when you drink both Cola and Anti-Cola. Coca-Cola is for my boo! My game lagged. Let's dive into the S-tier SCP items. Starting off is SCP-268, a hat that grants the user invisibility for 15 seconds. Any action you do afterwards will get you out of the invisibility, so keep that in mind when trying to sneak past enemies and they close the doors behind them. One of the other downsides are SCP-079 being able to still see you, as well as 096 if he is enraged and you looked at him. There is also our next item, the SCP-1334, that can see you as a purple orb. This pair of goggles is the legal version of wall hacks, giving colored orbs above the other players' heads, changing color depending on which role they are. When you put them on, they will, as the only downside, afflict you with blindness, which sounds bad at first, but it is only a black overlay that makes your vision slightly darker. But in my heart, none of the previous items come even close to SCP-127, a gun that can be obtained by unlocking it in this room with containment access level 3. This beautiful treasure has the ability to give you Hume Shield as well as regenerate bullets on its own. This is all of the stats that can be upgraded with each tiers. There are 3 ways of gaining points for SCP-127. While holding it, you will passively generate 2 points per second, you will gain as much points as damage you deal, and you gain around 150 points per player killed. Talking about points, let's dive into the ones that will determine whether your team will come and support you, or if the enemy's team will spawn and gently message your back with bullets. The points you gain are called influence. When enough influence is obtained, you will gain 1 token, and the threshold will increase, requiring more and more influence to get 1 token. You also on the side decrease the seconds it takes for your team to spawn, which will be the factor for which faction is spawned in. Here is a graph that you can save that explains all of the possible ways to obtain and how much you get for a specific action, as well as how much time you saved for your team to respawn. I strongly recommend going ahead and picking up any SCP items you find, as in the beginning it will have a huge impact on whether as a scientist you will spawn NTF/MTF, or as Class D where you will spawn Chaos Insurgency. Note that there also are mini waves between the primary wave spawns. A team can get a mini wave after getting 10 influence within 2 minutes of spawning, or after 2 minutes and 30 seconds has already passed. For each player that dies, the mini-wave's timer gets reduced by 5 seconds as well. I must have fell asleep while editing since I completely forgot to talk about heavy weapons, so might as well end this video on what they are. They can be found in these weapon lockers or rooms that require armory access level 3, which you will need the card from either the MTF Captain, Chaos Insurgents, or an 05. In the weapon lockers, you can get a JailBird or a Particle Disruptor. The JailBird is a melee weapon that ignores Hume Shield. It can be swung around with M1, or if you hold M2, you can charge it, one-shotting zombies and humans, and blinding them for 1.5 seconds if they somehow survive. The Particle Disruptor is a long-range weapon that can be changed of 2 modes with middle mouse button. The Burst mode will fire 3 shots that deal significant damage to kill zombies, humans, and destroy regular doors. The Disintegrator mode is a more powerful single blast that deals extremely high damage, capable of one-shotting SCPs easily if they are low health with a full Hume shield. Now to the micro that I mentioned in the last guide, locked upstairs in this room. This is the strongest of all the heavy weapons. By holding left click, you can fast charge, which will take less battery out of it, but deal significantly less damage than the long charge. To long charge, hold right click for about 8 seconds, which will press M1 to fire a huge ray of electricity capable of killing an entire SCP, even maybe 2 if you're good enough with it. Thank you for watching all the way through this video. If you want to learn more about light containment or cards, click here to see my last guide, or if you want to get notified when the next guide comes out, click on this icon right here. With that said, have a great day or night.